Welcome to European Railway, the video magazine for the continental enthusiast. Anyone travelling through France by rail cannot fail to notice the orange and grey livery of one of France's most widely travelled classes of electric locomotives, the BB-26000s. It is probable that the nuclear power station in the background at Crua in the Rhone Valley may well be producing the electricity being used by number 26210 as it passes southbound with a block train of mega combi boxes. The locos are now firmly established on all kinds of freight services. This is 26116. The locos were built by Alstom and were gradually introduced into service over a 10-year period beginning in 1988. There were 264 locomotives originally ordered, but the last 30 were changed to become BB-36000, leaving 234 of the 26000s making up the fleet. Being dual voltage, they work all over the country. With exceedingly high reliability, the locomotives are highly regarded by the operating authorities. In this view, 26230 shows off its 5200 kilowatt of rated power as it restarts this heavy freight train bound for Miramar Yard on 14th October 2004. The location is Saint-Martin-de-Creux. Note the UK gauge freight wagon immediately behind the locomotive. All locomotives are fitted with electric train heating supply and have a maximum speed of 200 km per hour. Today, locomotives are split between the passenger and freight subsectors. Most locos cover up to 200,000 km per year, although in comparison to some classes this is not at all high. From number 26188 onwards, locomotives were fitted with 3 headlights, the third being in the centre of the panel just below the cab. Their use on passenger services includes the route from Paris to Toulouse. Here 26072 approaches Brive on Sunday 11th May 2003 with the 0732 from Paris. To the south of Brive station, 26019 is passed by 26020, heading the 0740 from Seville to Paris. The locos are also used on services from Paris to and from Clermont-Ferrand. Sporting En Voyage livery number 26008 departs Saint-Germain-de-Fosse on 12th May 2003. The lines radiating from Dijon are a good place to see the locomotives in action. To the south at Luhan is 26217, on this occasion running wrong line due to engineering work. Finally, on 21st June 2005, number 26092 heads south near Goncourt on the Nancy to Dijon main line. The lines through central Slovakia are predominantly non-electrified and are a haven for diesel activity and popular with enthusiasts. We begin just to the south of Diviaki on the line from Jelena to Zvolen as two Class 810 units and two unpowered vehicles head the 1439 from Wrocki to Banskaya by Strica. At the junction station of Hornea Strubnaya, single railcar number 810625 is seen running around its trailer unit after arriving from Prajevice. Class 750 diesel number 272 arrives from the north working the 1531 from Wrocki to Zvolen. These local hauled services run every 4 hours in each direction. Activity comes all at once, with local branch line services arriving to connect into the main train. A few kilometres to the south at Krynica, 75272 is seen again. This station lies on the summit of the line, which has some steep inclines that necessitates the use of banking locomotives on the few freight trains that work over the section. We now move to Creveen, around 15 kilometres to the east of Zvolen, on the through route which eventually runs to Kozice. The station is again at the top of a long incline up the valleys on either side of the town. Here 754036 heads east while parrying the 1607 from Zvolen to Filakovo on 8th June 2005. (750-094) heads the 1757 from Filakovo as it begins the long descent down the grade to Zvolen. One of the most popular photographic locations in this area is at the small countryside halt at Pila. Class 752 are not that common on this route. They work occasional freight diagrams to Zvolen. With a good load behind it, 752041 drifts down grade with an eastbound working at just after 8:30 on the evening of 8th June 2005. The 1 in 56 incline requires frequent double heading or even the banking of heavier freights. At 21:23 hours, 736-004 and 003 power up the grade. Headlight blazing, 773-007 rounds the corner at just after 9:30. These locomotives are rebuilds of the Russian design class 771 diesels and are fitted with new Caterpillar engines. In complete contrast, the following morning at 05:45 sees Zvolen-based 750221 calling at Pila station with the 0458 from Villakovo. These engines are common on local passenger duties in the area. Unfortunately, unlike some of the lower numbered examples working in the Czech Republic, they are heavily silenced. There is no silencer evident here as 771026 heads up the grade at just before 6 AM. With most trains still formed of locomotive and coaches, the railways in Slovakia are a step back in time compared to other European countries. Forming the 0610 from Filakovo 750140 arrives at just after 7 am on 9th June. If passengers were to try this in the UK, there would be serious consequences. Here, though, it is part of daily life, an interesting comparison to the different attitudes seen across Europe. Finally, this track inspection coach is powered by 1964 vintage Class 850 diesel railcar number 850018. Just to the east of St.Polten lies the small village of Schilberg. On 5th May 2004 we spent just 75 minutes on the station and witnessed the following. The first movement at just after 8 PM was 1116022, seen here with an eastbound container train. Five minutes later, and 10:44:054 powers the 1934 intercity service from Wien to Salzburg. It took a further 10 minutes before the next train passed, this time in the form of 1044-100. German electric locomotives are also frequent on this line. Leading the overnight 1950 departure from Wien to Hamburg-Altona is 101-101, seen passing at 20:34 hours. With the last of the daylight now rapidly fading, 1044-238 rounds the curve at 10:09. Just 1 minute later, 101-083 rushes through on the City Nightline service to Hamburg. Another minute later and we see 11:16-043. Finally, 75 minutes since our arrival, and an unidentified Class 1042 heads east. We continue with our periodic look at railways around Lake Balaton. In 2004, between 4 and 6 trains per day were being run in connection with the construction of a new motorway extension. These trains used M62 diesels, especially drafted into the area. A similar train is seen just to the south of Topoltsa. This line is predominantly single, so pathing times are quite stringent, and trains are only called forward when frequency permits. Trains were also formed using low-sided wagons. Here, an M62 pulls out of Balaton-feneyves, heading for the nearby construction site. The passenger services on the line are generally operated by Class V43 and V63 electric locomotives. Here we see a V63 on a Budapest to Nagy Kanica service. At Balaton-feneyves station, we see V43 Bobo electric number 1153 on a local service heading southwest. On the northern side of the lake, this Class M41 powers the last summer-only service from Szombathely to Balaton-feneyves. This train now starts from Dior and is formed with Austrian stock. We are now aboard one of the frequent Class M41 powered services on the northern side of the lake as it heads for Budapest. Trains pass at Chopak as we depart once more aboard the 1345 from Budapest to Topoltsa. These locomotives have 16 power notches, whereas the Class M62s also featured have 15. At Balaton-feneyves there is the terminus of the narrow gauge system running some 15 kilometres through to Tsetse, with the additional 6 kilometre branches to Taska and Songi-Zentspal. Just a handful of services operate over the route, which was originally built to transport agricultural related produce, some 130,000 tonnes in its heyday, and the people to work the land on the then large estates. The main shed is seen here with 2 Class C50 locomotives awaiting their next turn of duty. Some other Class C50s are now stored and are a valuable source of spares. Trains are operated by the diminutive Class C50 locomotives hauling just one coach. In the summer there are up to 4 trains per day on the main route, with as little as 1 return working per day on the branches. Most of the land has been reclaimed from the lake and so is rich in water-loving plants and fauna. Indeed, the whole area is practically one large nature reserve. For our final scenes, we return to the main line on the western shores of Lake Balaton, as we see M62116 working the Pêche to Cheldamon service. Finally, re-engined M62315 is totally ignored by the shore fishermen as it skirts the lake on a service for St.Polten. Located close to the large industrial centres south of Halle, and also not far from Leipzig, Großkopf lies on a major junction of lines in the area. Freight traffic abounds in this former eastern part of Germany, where XDR locomotive classes dominate the scene. Local passenger services are very frequent, as we begin with this Class 143 operated service forming the 1748 from Halle to Naumburg, pulling into one of the station's numerous platforms, testament in itself to the past importance of this junction town. Simultaneously, in the opposite direction, 143053 arrives with the 1609 from Eisenach to Halle. We made our visit on a very windy evening of 7th May 2004, where a series of Atlantic low pressure systems were moving quickly east over this part of Europe. Heading for Frankfurt is this Class 411 ICE unit on a service from Berlin. On the north side of the station are the extensive exchange sidings, used mainly to stage wagons working into and out of the nearby chemical works, although other trains are held there in order to exchange locomotives. Locomotives belonging to private operators also make frequent appearances, as in this view of 185532. During our evening visit, there were around 8 to 10 freight movements each hour. Some, such as this, passed straight through the station. There are some serious quantities of chemicals transported by rail in this area, originating from the vast industrial facilities located nearby. Here 155262 arrives from the north. One 15151 has coupled onto its train and departs at just after 7 p.m. with a long intermodal working. Signs of the railway past are on show all around, including some excellent examples of railway architecture, such as this water tower. Siemens Dispolock hire locomotives are now commonplace through Central Europe, including here at Großkorbeta. With a numbering system which needs a genius to work out, number ES6402-007 arrives with a trainload of steel bars. At first sight the number does look a bit confusing, but it is easily explained. The ES is Euro Sprinter, the 64 denotes the rating, in this case 6400 kilowatts, and the 02 is dual voltage. The last digits denote the locomotive number, in this case 007. They could have used 1116707, which would have made life much easier for all of us. Class 612 tilting diesel units also make an appearance, such as this pair on the 1849 from Leipzig to Weissenfels. As darkness encroaches, ICE sets 411, 027 and 033 come into view with the 1811 Dresden to Frankfurt service. "104 voltage Class 189 electrics are on order by DB for through freight working into countries such as Holland, Czech Republic, Belgium, France, Poland and Italy. They are a development of the 190 strong Class 152 freight locomotive. The massive chemical works to the north have their own private locomotives, which are used for tripping wagons to and from the local exchange sidings. Here, a Class V 100.4 diesel number 131 returns for its next turn of duty. Meanwhile, freight on the main line continues to operate. This is 155126 heading north with a trainload of steel just before 8 p.m. Train loads of lime, coal, stone and other bulk commodities also account for a large percentage of the traffic to be seen. Rostock allocated 232287 arrives from the north at 23 minutes past 8. Another view of a Class 120, this time in the shape of 120-123, which is seen arriving with a train of empty coaching stock. Of the newest electric locomotives now working on the DB system, the Class 152s are one of the loudest. Not that there is much noise, but when they are under power they can be heard from a good distance. 152-133 is seen drifting through on a southbound freight. Class 140 are also regular performers in the area. This is 140-232. intercity services generally operate every hour in each direction. On the rear of this service from Stralsund is 101068. The two tracks closest to the station entrance are often used to stable locomotives. A pair of 232s rumble through before parking up. With trains every few minutes, the action is non-stop. Local services are frequent, and after about 2 or 3 hours you may find the same locomotives appearing again. For observing freight and passenger traffic, this station is well worth visiting. With darkness nearly upon us, the procession of freight trains never stop. Here 155216 slows with the southbound working at just before 9 o'clock. Finally, 155038 hurries through with that northbound mixed freight just 2 minutes later. For many people interested in European trains, the railways of Switzerland rank as one of the finest. none more so than the country's narrow gauge systems. In the first of a two-part journey along the Westbahn, we sample some of the delights of this popular meter gauge system. Our route will take us from Skiers, just to the southeast of Lankwart, through to the popular ski resorts of Klosters and Davos, and onwards to the junction station at Tbilisi. All scenes were taken on Monday 13th of June 2005. Locomotive number 606 is seen at the rear of the 0617 from Lankwart to Davos Platz. This locomotive, although heavily rebuilt, dates from 1953 and is one of a total of 10 which make up the fleet. Skiers is situated on the long climb from Lankwart to Klosters, where the gradients are typically between 20 and 35%. Departing with the 0632 to Raisons is railcar number 513, a Class B E44 dating from 1971. The wide valleys and gentle curves around Jenarts allow the trains to gain some considerable speed. Here locomotive number 619 sweeps by with the 0556 from Davos to Kur. The line from Lankwart to Klosters was opened by the Lankwart-Davos Railway on 9th October 1889 and became part of the Westbahn some 7 years later. Seen approaching the station at Friedrichs is loco number 629, hauling the 0647 from Lankwart to Skuol-Tarasp. The station at Klostersdorf is 1131 metres above sea level and is on a section where the gradient touches 43%. Drifting down from Klosters itself is Class GE44 number 641 with the 0658 service from Davos. The station at Klosters sees a period of intense train activity roughly every 30 minutes. In between times it is exceedingly tranquil, with life continuing at a very sedate pace. During our visit we were lucky enough to catch a glimpse of this freight service, headed by one of only two Class GMF44 diesel shunters, number 243. Within no time at all, the station geared itself for a deluge of trains. First on the scene was number 651 with the 0747 from Lankwart to Davos. Finally, the 0545 from Descentis to Scuol Tarasp enters the station headed by number 614. Dating from 1971, it is one of a fleet of 23 locomotives, the first 10 of which were built in 1971, the rest following in 1984 and 1985. This section of line was opened a year later than the line from Langquart to Klosters, with services commencing on 21st July 1895. Here is articulated locomotive number 701, part of a fleet of 7, with the first 2 locomotives, including this one, dating from 1958. Running into Davos Dorf station from the direction of Davos Platz is number 651, returning on the 0906 departure for Langquart. Incidentally, the station here is 5,070 feet above sea level, around half the height of the nearby mountain tops. On the long descent to Philipsburg lies Wiesen Station, which serves a collection of houses deep down close to the valley floor. During our stop, some planned maintenance work was being carried out between trains using this works machine. This section of line from Davos to Filesur was opened on 1st July 1909. Here, locomotive number 609 arrives with the 10:04 service from Filesur to Davos, a journey of just 23 minutes. We're now at Filesur, the last station on part 1 of our journey. Here number 609 is seen again with the terminating train from Davos. Finally, one of the most famous of all trains to operate in this part of Switzerland is the Glacier Express. Starting from the chic resort of St. Moritz, it journeys over some of the most spectacular scenery in Europe, making its way to the foot of the Matterhorn at Zermatt, a journey of over 8 hours. In our final section, we pay a short visit to one of the many private lines in Italy. This one is operated by ACT Reggio Emilia and runs the 26 kilometres from Reggio to Sassuolo, deep in the heart of the Italian ceramics manufacturing area. Clay in its raw form is carried along the line by the trainload, principally from quarries in Germany, whilst finished ceramics leave the new interchange terminal here at Dinazzano. One of the line's 3 new Vossloh Type G2000 locomotives, Pilot's ex-German Class 216 diesel number 216001, a pre-series V160 on this inbound train of clay from Limburg. After depositing its train, the loco returns to Reggio Emilia with a short rake of empties. Heavily loaded passenger services are operated by locomotive and coaches in push-pull mode using a set of ex-Swiss coaching stock. Here, one of the line's Class 122 diesels approaches Dinazzano with a train for Reggio Emilia. Note the freight waiting to leave the yard on the right. With up to 7 loaded freight trains each way per day, the line can be quite rewarding for photography. Here, our final scene features ex-German 216001, now renumbered 1900 008, departing with the 1444 empty clay train to Limburg. We would like to thank you for watching this edition of European Railway.